Okay, Thursday morning. I'm going to get to sanding, but I wanted to sort of clarify why I don't make sheaths for knives that aren't mine. It takes experimentation and tweaking and redoing, and a lot of time has to be devoted to come up with a sheath that fits just the way I want them to fit and look the way I want them to look. And if I make sheaths for my knives, every time I make a knife, I benefit from the time I spent designing a sheath. If I take the time to make a sheath for a knife that's not mine, all that time I spent making that sheath and designing and coming up with a plan and uh, tweaking and adjusting, I use it, at one time. I use that one time, and I never see a knife like that again. So all that time is basically wasted. And there's no way I can charge people enough to justify the amount of time that a sheath takes to make. I mean, there are leather workers that do charge, several $100s. Anyway, the sheath that I made for that fella tower, I'm not talking about that. Believe me, he more than compensated me for the sheath. I'm just saying that perhaps people have wondered, leather working doesn't seem like it's that difficult. I mean, anybody can fold leather over and sew it and make a sheath. But that's not how I do. That's not the sheaths I'm looking for. And I'm still, I have one more sheath, the one for my swamp rat. I'm not happy with that sheath, which is why I haven't cut the pattern out in wood yet. I just have a paper pattern. But I just got to sit down and take the time and redesign. That's the last sheath I make that I'm not happy with. And I have to make myself sit down, take the time, design a sheath, make it, tweak it, adjust the pattern, and then cut it out of wood to have that pattern for as long as I make that knife. So I just thought I would clarify my thinking behind not making sheaths for knives that aren't my own knives, because it's too time consuming and I never get the benefit of that time back unless I'm making them for my own knives. Okay, on to sanding. The human mind is a funny thing indeed. When you put a lot of energy and work into something, your brain has to see progress or wants to make you stop the work. Now, I'm going to see if I can get this in focus. Let me see if I can get this to, there we go, maybe that's, indirectly, maybe that's, okay. There's a lot, especially the initial sanding, where you sand diagonally to get the belt grinder grind lines off the bevel, is a lot of work, and it's very, very time consuming and very, very labor intensive, and you gotta, it's repetitive. I mean, it's everything that your brain normally, the normal human brain, doesn't like. So what I do to satisfy that part of my brain is I start at the tip of the knife and sand this away so I can actually look and see the progress that my sanding is making. And that allows me to force myself to keep on sanding past the point of where your arms say, "Are you sure this is worth it? I don't think we're doing anything. Why don't we just stop?" And you got to push through that. I was going to write an article about this, but I think this conveys better. There we go. There's a better shot. And this is where I start. I start here. And I sand my way this way. And it actually gets harder and harder and harder up here. I do have a little low spot I'll have to sand out. Not a problem. That'll come out. And it'll just take a lot of extra sanding right in this spot. But it is funny how the human brain works and how If you've done it a while, you figure out ways to convince your brain to basically shut up and keep on sanding, because you know eventually what the outcome is going to be, and it's going to be something you like looking at, and it'll end up looking smooth and just like you want it. But the amount of effort to get from here to there is massive, especially the first sand. Now, I did initially start with a 180, but I've had to go back to 150. I guess it's not showing. There we go, 150, because off the belt grinder I stop at 120, and for some reason 180 I couldn't get past the 120 grit, so I had to go back to 150. My next grit will be 180 going this way. It'll be easier. The very first sanding off the belt grinder is the hardest and most time consuming. And as you progress in grits, it gets a little easier and a little easier and takes a little less time. But boy, your brain sure wants to convince you to stop. Now, you can't see it, but I can. Right up here, there's still a scratch that I got to get out. I'm going to see if I can catch this just right where you can see it. No, I can't. My eye can see it, but yeah, right here. You look real close, you can see some faint vertical lines. Here's what I usually do. Yeah, and not any better. Oh well. I can see them, and I'll sand them out. It just take another 2 minutes of sanding here, but I'm almost to the point where it's perfect. They're right here. See them right here? Very, very faint lines. Now I'll get them out, but in 2 minutes it'll be perfect from here to here, and then I'll start working about just past this little divot, the little part where I probably hesitated on the belt for just a second. That's all it takes is a millisecond, and you end up with a deeper grind than this side or that side of it. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting how the brain works, and it absolutely needs to see progress. When you put that amount of effort into something, your brain desperately wants to see some progress, and that's why I start at the tip, so I can see progress as I slowly work my way up to the plunge line. Oh golly, I almost, that divot that was right here, almost gone. Really something that, looking through the camera, it's not near as I mean, with my bare eyes I can see all the scratches I got to get out still, but look through the camera I can't see anything. Let me spin around. Yeah, right here. Just a couple more little scratches, and that big divot that was there will be out. And then I got to work my way up to the plunge line, and I'll tell you, the plunge line here is the hardest to get all the scratches out, because you've got two planes. You've got this plane, and then you've got this plane here, you know, a vertical plane and a horizontal plane. And what I do is I use the very corner. Actually, I have a couple other things that I use to get in there. I use this. This has sharper edges on it. Also, I have a metal one here that I've used before, and this one I made specifically for this. I put the sandpaper this way, and then this is what it looks like. I put the sandpaper this way, and I get up in here, and I have to move the sandpaper constantly because you're only using a tiny fraction of the edge here, and it's really hard to get them plunge lines, sometimes impossible to get the grind lines out of the plunge line. But I try every time, and sometimes I have more success than others. Anyway, I'll have this side done, and I'll show you the other side here in a minute. Okay. Now, we begin on this side. This side doesn't have any big divots though, so I'll probably save about 20 minutes on this side. Alright, get the sand in, everybody. Come on, get your sanders ready. It is 3:30. I have sanded on these 4 blades since 8 o'clock. I stopped for a cup of coffee, a little past noon. I cannot believe it's taken me this long. And that's the first grit. I'm only at 180. I'll tell you what happened. These combat abrasives belts remove material so much faster than any other belt I ever had. But the trade-off is they make the metal much, much hotter, much, much quicker. So normally what I do is make a couple of passes right here, right there, with my grinding jig, my bevel grinding jig, and then I dunk it in my water. What has happened is I let the metal get too hot and then dunk it, and it hardens the metal. This metal is, for all intents and purposes, it's been heat treated. Not really. I mean, I got to go back through that process, but I accidentally hardened the metal without realizing it by letting it get way too hot before I dunked it. My fault. So this has taken me probably 3 or 4 times longer to sand than it should have, and I finally, it hit it like a light bulb went off. I realized what I had done, and anyway, it won't happen again. So from now on, when I'm grinding, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to be putting less pressure against the belt, and I'm going to be dunking it in the cooling water way more often. Lord, 7.5 hours of steady sanding. That is a lot of sandpaper. All right, tomorrow, if we don't go to town tomorrow, now, this 180, this is where I typically start when I take these off the belt grinder. But this metal was so hard, I had to go all the way back to 150. So tomorrow, I'm going to start on 180. My wife hasn't decided whether I need to go to carry her to town or not. We are still very concerned about supplies and shortages, and I actually ordered some August and stuff. I ordered 10 cans of 1 gallon cans of something and 4 1-gallon cans of another something. And, you know, our double wide is the smallest double wide that we could find with 3 bedrooms. So we don't have a lot of storage space. And I may end up having to store stuff down here. Stuff that doesn't get affected by, you know, extreme low or extreme heat. I mean, it probably gets 105 or 110 in here, and the hottest part of the summer, and you know, it could get down to freezing in the winter. So that's what we would store down here, is stuff that's not terribly affected by high heat or low cold. God, my hands are killing me. Okay, I will be back out here tomorrow, probably. I think my wife she's down the hill there somewhere. Yep. Okay, time to take a break. Break time. I do not know why this dog likes to pull the guts out of these toys. But ever since we've had them, that's his thing. And it makes my wife mad. Boy, does it make her mad. So, whenever I come into this room, you know where I'm at. He accompanies me. He brings a toy because he knows that I'm not going to yell at him for removing the guts from these. And when we're all finished in this room, what I do is gather up the evidence and throw it away. And he carries his toy back out there like nothing happened. We got sort of an agreement here that, he gets to disembowel the toys whenever I'm in this room.